Today in this video, we're going to talk about the Binance travel rule. Binance is under attack. They're working to comply. I think this screams that we need better decentralization. I like Binance as an exchange. I personally use them for my own trading. I've talked about that before. And I've got a couple of ideas for future videos I want to talk to you about since we're talking about Binance. One of the videos I want to do is really my strategy to be able to earn $1 million trading over the next 5 to 10 years. A particular trading strategy that I use. I'm thinking about doing a video about that. I'm also thinking about doing a video where I do a full review of FTX Exchange and or tutorial on FTX Exchange. I'm also got another project I'm looking at called the 4 token. If you'd like to know more about that, let me know. I'm just trying to decide what to do a video on next. So leave me a comment down below. Do you want me to talk about 4? Do you want me to talk about my trading strategy or how I'm projecting myself to be able to earn $1 million over the next 5 to 10 years trading cryptocurrency? Or would you like me to do an exchange regarding FTX? I'll probably do all 3 of those. But which one would you like to know first? Let's talk about this news today because I think this is mildly disturbing. The first thing I want to hit on is Binance and what Binance is doing right now. Binance tackles travel rule compliance after multiple bans. Following bans in Japan, the UK, and Ontario, Binance is ramping up its compliance efforts with a specialized tool developed by crypto intelligence firm CipherTrace. Binance, the world's top-ranked crypto exchange by daily trading volume, has faced a quick succession of bans on its operations in 3 different jurisdictions: Ontario, Canada, Japan, and the United Kingdom. While affected, users continue to adjust to these quick-fire developments. The platform appears to be stepping up its efforts to comply with international regulatory requirements, specifically the industry-shaping so-called travel rule. If you don't know what the travel rule is, you've got to listen to this. By the way, the U.S. primarily is the one who pushed this and implemented this, but it's basically a tremendous invasion of privacy. Take a look. The travel rule introduced by the Financial Action Task Force requires regulators and virtual asset providers, including crypto exchanges, custody providers, and over-the-counter trading desks, to gather and share customer data during transactions. So they want to know exactly what you're transacting in, how much you're transacting in, when you're transacting in, and who you're transacting with. That is a virtual asset provider. The rule came into effect in 2020 and broadly parallels the requirements already in place for money transmitters in countries like the United States. Notice I say countries like. The United States was the originator of this travel rule type thing. They didn't originate the travel rule. They're the first ones to originate this type of regulation. Countries like the United States, where money transmitters are required to record identifying information of all parties engaged in fund transfers made between financial institutions. Most Americans don't realize up until recently, 2020, America was the only one that required this level of identity verification prior to being able to transact, meaning transact with your own money. You can transact with your own money, but in America, for the past several years, you could not do that unless you gave up your identity of what you were doing and who you were doing it with. However, adherence to the rule has been complicated for many crypto exchanges worldwide due to the discrepancies between various countries, particularly transposition of the FATF's framework. For this reason, Binance, following in the steps of other virtual asset service providers, is choosing to implement a specialized tool developed by a crypto intelligence firm, CipherTrace, that has been adapted to tackle some of the challenges that virtual asset providers are faced with. Dubbed Traveler, named after the rule it has been designed to address, the tool continues CipherTrace's long-term work on an open-source travel rule information architecture and is designed to handle counterparty virtual asset service providers due to due diligence demanded by the FATF. The company's CEO, Dave Givens, however you say that, said that CipherTrace is confident that Traveler will help Binance to continue to meet the highest standards of global anti-money laundering compliance, particularly as regulations of virtual asset service providers tighten in jurisdictions around the world. He added that the solution aims to enable anti-money laundering compliance without compromising security or operational continuity. But what it does compromise is your privacy, ladies and gentlemen. Now, CipherTrace is really one of the leaders in chain analytics, and chain analytics is basically how companies have created software that can run across the blockchain and can grab identifying information. If you have connected your identity anywhere through things like your IP address or through transactions that you've made with exchanges where you've given up your identity. Like if you have a Binance.us account right now, Binance knows where you're sending money to and where you're sending money from. They know that that's your account. And I'm assuming before long, everyone with a Binance.com address will be doing the exact same thing. Once they have your identity connected to a wallet, they can track that wallet and every transaction that is ever made all over the web. And in fact, they actually don't need you to confirm their identity. In many cases, they just need to have one of your wallets. They can watch your purchasing habits and pretty quickly realize what other wallets are most likely yours. I mean, they can look at your purchasing habits of various wallets and measure statistically which wallet is probably yours or has a high likelihood of being yours as well. In some ways, it's basically just a process of elimination is what they're doing. For lack of better terms, I guess. I'm oversimplifying that a bit, but I just want you to understand. Don't think that cryptocurrency is anonymous. It's not. Anyone who tells you that cryptocurrency is anonymous just doesn't know what they're talking about unless you're specifically using an anonymous cryptocurrency like Monero. When you read someone says, we've got to stop people from using Bitcoin because the bad guys in the world use Bitcoin because they like the anonymity of it. Whoever wrote that article is just misleading you on purpose, or they're totally naive to crypto and should not be writing for a crypto organization. Those are the only two options. Eventually you can start realizing who's interacting with what wallets and what accounts. You can start figuring out who owns or who controls what accounts. Credit card companies have been doing this for years. Credit card companies, if you're in direct mail, you can send things like compiled lists. A lot of times those compiled lists, people who are interested in this, people who are interested in that, oftentimes that data comes from credit bureaus who have been tracking credit card data. They've been tracking credit card purchases. You get junk mail, you're trying to figure out where you're getting it from. Well, part of where you're getting it from, how do they know that I went shopping there? Did Walmart sell my information to some brokerage house? Probably not. Walmart's not selling customer data based on what you're purchasing. They don't even have your address per se. But the credit card company does. The credit card company knows where you purchase something. They can sell that data. They just can't legally sell the identity. They don't need to sell the identity. If they can track enough of your data, your identity can basically be figured out. Let's take a look at this crazy news story. U.S. government may demand the ability to reverse crypto transactions. What the heck? The U.S. government can pass whatever laws it likes regarding cryptocurrencies or anything else on the planet. The problem is that while the laws may be enforceable in some areas, regulating the Bitcoin network is basically impossible. Let's hope it remains that way. The U.S. government is working on regulations for cryptocurrencies, but it is off to a rocky start. In an Axios virtual event on Tuesday, Democratic Representative Bill Foster of Illinois, who is co-chair of the House Blockchain Caucus, this guy is co-chair. He's one of the leaders of the group in Congress responsible for understanding blockchain, helping create laws around blockchain. I don't know if this is scary or lunacy or nonsense, but he demanded that the U.S. government have the ability to exert control over the Bitcoin network in ways that may be impossible. At this point, his demands are stupid. He could demand that the U.S. government have the ability to fly like a bird, and the government can't do that. Foster was also critical of anyone who used Bitcoin, which may end up being a poor choice of viewpoint going forward. He commented, "You have to be able to go to court to unmask participants under some circumstances, pseudo-anonymous, so the regulators can see." It's already pseudo-anonymous. Do you understand? This is what I'm saying. This guy is saying this. Either he's an idiot, which he's not. He already knows this. He already knows this. The idea that would power these new abilities would be legally endowed to U.S. regulators. However, the technical side of the equation wasn't given much explanation. Linking up a specific person to a Bitcoin address is possible. I just discussed that. But in some cases, it may not be easy. U.S. government regulations may not work. If you're technically savvy, you can attempt to prevent the government from knowing your identity if you're interacting with Bitcoin. But if you're trying to use it, or if you're ever trying to actually withdraw it to fiat, you're going to give up. In most cases, you're going to give up your identity. And even, by the way, even if you don't, people are like, well, I can just use local Bitcoin. Yes, but if the government wants to chase you down bad enough, they can figure it out. They can track IPs. Sooner or later, you're going to have to be right 100% of the time. You got to understand, the government is full of people who have nothing else better to do than to collect a paycheck tracking down whoever the government wants them to track down and follow whoever the government wants them to follow. And the government has unlimited resources to pay these people for however long it takes. It may not be easy, but it's going to always be possible to be able to track or link up an identity or a specific person to a Bitcoin address if the government wants to bad enough. U.S. government regulations may not work. To be sure, the U.S. government can pass whatever laws it likes regarding cryptocurrencies or anything else on the planet. The problem is that while the laws may be enforceable in some areas, regulating the Bitcoin network is basically impossible. Foster continued, I've just said about 3 things there that will drive the crypto purist berserk, like the trusted third party and so on. But in fact, there's not a technological alternative that I'm aware of. For most people, if they're going to have a big part of their net worth tied up in crypto assets, they're going to want to have the security blanket of a trusted third party that can solve the problem. I disagree with this. And by the way, it isn't clear what he said yet in this article, but what he actually said in that speech was that they had to be able to roll back transactions. That's impossible. Otherwise, what's the point in having Bitcoin? And that there must be a trusted third party who has the authority to be able to do this. I mean, outside of the fact that the U.S. doesn't regulate the Bitcoin network for the entire world, the whole point in having crypto is that it's trustless. And this fool is saying we need a trusted third party. Who is this Mother Teresa that is going to always be fair? I mean, our own justice system in America is not always fair. I mean, the problem with delegating authority is we don't have angels who are responsible for the authority. I mean, it's absolutely nuts to even think that he's suggesting this. But he says for most people, if they're going to have a big part of their net worth tied up in crypto assets, they're going to want that security blanket. I disagree with that. I think that's old money. I think that's old legacy. I think you have a new generation that's coming up that understands. Now we're going to have to become more responsible as citizens. You can't go on YouTube and look in the comments and WhatsApp people that say they're crypto wealth and send them Bitcoin. That would be dumb. You got to be careful what you do with your crypto. You have to be aware of what you're doing with your money. You're responsible for it. Once you send it, it's gone. Not your keys, not your crypto ever. And I think that the new generation coming along, I think they're going to understand that by and large, at least the ones that aren't in politics. They're going to understand that. And they don't necessarily want an untrustworthy, impossible to trust individual that can always be paid off by big governments, that can choose exactly when transactions get rolled back and don't get rolled back. I mean, that's just a cluster if I ever heard of one. So I think that you're going to have a younger generation that's going to understand what trustless means, decentralization, blockchain. This issue that he's talking about is only for old money. You know, the whitehead guys. The issue is that whether or not there is a trusted third party, the ability to override a blockchain simply may not be possible, barring a 51% attack. It is impossible to tamper with Bitcoin's records regardless of the legal approval to do so. Of course. And this guy knows this, by the way. They're just looking to attack Bitcoin. A new problem for old regulatory ideas. One aspect of these ideas that seems to be emerging is that lawmakers, I love this, lawmakers in major nations can imagine a world where their legislative ability is limited by code, and whatever laws are passed, the only enforcement actions that could take place would be aimed at people in their nation. For example, if 2 people were physically present in the U.S., then perhaps some of these ideas that are coming out of U.S. legislators are possible. However, for 2 parties outside the U.S., then making the Bitcoin blockchain fall under the control of U.S. courts would be much more difficult or impossible. If the U.S. wanted to make any sort of impact on these new transactional systems, it may have to create its own great red, white, and blue firewall and impose some serious restrictions on how U.S. citizens and residents are allowed to own digital assets. Ladies and gentlemen, I think you have to be aware this could be coming, particularly when the U.S. central bank digital dollar is rolled out. I mean, they're going to want to protect that. And it's going to be interesting to see how the U.S. responds to this. Hopefully, they start becoming more friendly and understand decentralization. I am not holding my breath for this, but I hope that's what we end up seeing. I do think there are going to be regulators calling for a red, white, and blue firewall, similar to what China has, trying to prevent U.S. citizens from interacting with cryptocurrency in any way, shape, or form. I do believe that is a strong possibility. And if you don't understand why that's a strong possibility, then you don't understand how desperate central banks are to hold on to the monetary system. And quite honestly, let's just be honest here, point blank. If cryptocurrency, if Bitcoin became the trusted currency of the world, it could potentially crash the economy worldwide because you would basically have to deleverage. Our entire economy worldwide is built on leverage, debt on top of debt on top of debt. And if you don't understand that, then right now you just don't understand how our current economic system works. And that's okay. But just know that there's a strong possibility if Bitcoin became the cryptocurrency of the world, as many of us would like to see it be, for a lot of people, it's going to crash the economy, most likely. But at the same time, it would strip big banks, big finance, central banks from most of their powers. I think that's a good thing long term. The money could be an issue. Much in the same way that the U.S.-led foreign policy has created firm divisions in the global order, these new regulations may do the same thing from the standpoint of economic freedom. I agree with this 100%. I told you we just talked about what's happening with Binance. They're literally, Japan, Ontario, UK is basically putting Binance in a position. Binance created Binance.us to comply with US laws. But now Binance.com is getting put in a position where they're going to have to start complying with US laws or laws that are based off of US laws. Foster told the event, we're going to have to establish a law between the legal and illegal regimes here. There's a significant sentiment, increasing sentiment in Congress that if you're participating in an anonymous crypto transactions, then you're a de facto participant in a criminal conspiracy. Can we look at what they're trying to do? If you're participating in an anonymous crypto transaction, which mind you, Bitcoin is not anonymous. We just freaking said that. But who cares if it was? He says, right now, they're going to tell you that it's anonymous, and right now he's telling you that you're a de facto participant in a criminal conspiracy. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not good if the U.S. goes down this route. But I do believe there's a strong possibility. When you're investing in this space, this is part of the risk you have to be aware of. You have to be aware of this possible risk. The idea that a person who owns or uses Bitcoin is working as part of a criminal conspiracy is absurd. Say that again. Absolutely absurd. However, the U.S. government may create laws that enshrine this kind of thinking into the law. All of this is happening at the same time the U.S. government is spending freshly created cash at the highest levels in the post-World War II era, and there's no end in sight. If anyone was wondering if the U.S. was going to allow its citizens to seek refuge from fiat inflation and decentralized digital assets, the answer is looking more like no all the time. I agree. Nicholas A., great job from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Great job, Nicholas. Does this guy have a Twitter account? If so, no, he has LinkedIn. Sirs, I need to go follow that guy on Twitter. Ladies and gentlemen, this is incredible news. It's absurd in so many ways. But do not underestimate the federal government. Here's the problem. Someone on Twitter said, Bitcoin only has value because people believe it has value. And I responded, of course. Name one asset, name one cryptocurrency, name anything that exists without the validity of someone else first agreeing that it has value. Gold only has value because people understand that it has value. If no one understood what gold was, it doesn't have value. Real estate only has value because it generates revenue. There's a hard asset. Somebody has something to live in. It only has value because someone else agrees with that value. And someone's going to say, no, there's a use case. It's usable. It's functional. Correct. But what's the value of that functionality? It is determined by what someone else is willing to pay for it. I am so tired of people saying, where's the value in that? What's the value behind it? What determines its value? The value is determined that there's a community of people that want to use it. Now, this also is true for laws. The U.S. government will only get away with this if this nation's citizens allow them to get away with it. And I do believe at this very moment, they act quick enough. Most citizens don't care about cryptocurrency. Most citizens don't care about privacy. Most citizens don't care about decentralization versus centralization. So if they act quick enough, all they have to do is tell people, since you don't understand it, because most people don't understand this stuff, since you don't understand it, it's dangerous, it's used by bad people, and you're a criminal should you transact in it. That would be enough for most people to say, oh, we don't want a part of it. Regulate it. If people are using it for bad things like money laundering, regulate it. Right now, the citizens would agree with that. But if the citizens understand, ladies and gentlemen, share cryptocurrency with people. Have them do something simple. Have them download the CryptoTab web browser. Have them subscribe to our Crypto Passive Profits newsletter. Learn how to earn free crypto. Just get people interacting. Once someone earns $5 using the CryptoTab web browser, for example, all of a sudden they're going to want to know how to withdraw it. You're going to be able to show them how to send a Bitcoin transaction for the first time ever. It's far easier to get people in the ecosystem, show them the ecosystem, have them interact with this ecosystem than it is to explain the technology and why they should understand it. That knowledge will come later. But we have to share this incredible technology with people. This is part of an economic revolution. We're part of an economic paradigm shift right now, ladies and gentlemen. We are here early. We are here first. And we have an obligation to help introduce other people to this incredible technology. Now, I'm not talking about the degen investments. I'm just talking about the incredible technology that is cryptocurrency, decentralized blockchain. Heck, share my channel if you can't do anything else. Share one of my videos if you can't do anything else. Remember, decentralized cryptocurrency equals freedom. They're going to want to take that from you possibly. If you agree with anything that I've said, do me a favor and smash that like button. This is Crypto Wealth, and I'm out.